After this very lively morning, the dialogue between experts between the Buddhist and the Vedanta traditions, we are now having an afternoon with yet another discipline of contemplation, Jain meditation, and in particular the practical aspect of it, the praksha. So there will be practical instructions, examples of applications, also medical applications, and in particular we will have scientific studies performed in India on praksha meditation and its effects. So this is a nice example on the secular practice that you proposed 2 days ago. You will see 3 new faces on stage. Some of them you know already, the others you know. And for the attendants, I would like to briefly introduce them to you. All the way to the right, we have H.R. Nagendra. I was told that one can use the abbreviations and that it is actually requested. He's the President and Vice Chancellor of the Swami Vivekananda Yoga University in Bangalore. Correct. He has co-authored about 35 books on yoga and nearly 35 or 40 research papers in engineering and in yoga. He got awards from the Ministry of Health for his initiatives in promoting scientific analysis of yoga research. And he is a consultant in yoga to many universities all over the world, in Australia, in the US, and other countries. He joined the Vivekananda Kendra, which is a service mission, as a honorary director of training in 1975. Then he spent a whole decade in developing yoga and yoga therapy programs. And then he shifted to the headquarters to Bangalore, where he still is. And he tries to translate the vision of Swami Vivekananda technique to combine the best of the pragmatics in the East and the pragmatics in the West, if I understand correctly. Now to his left is Shirley Telly. She got her degrees, the master degree in biological sciences from Goa Medical College, then her master in philosophy and neurophysiology and a PhD in neurophysiology from the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore. Now she is a director of research at Panyala Yogapith Haridava. I probably make mistakes here. I apologize. And he is the head of the Indian Council of Medical Research, Center for Advanced Research in Yoga and Neurophysiology at Bangalore. And she also has a respectable number of scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals on yoga and the effects of yoga on physiological parameters, which led to a number of rewards from the Indian Council of Medical Research, from the John Templeton Foundation, and also from the Fulbright Foundation for Traveling. Then to my left, I have Muniji Mahendra Kumar. He must be known to you, all of you, from literature and from reading. He is a scholar of very many diverse disciplines, and what I read here makes me admire. It's physics, mathematics, bioscience, and philosophy. He's also an expert in ancient history and meditation, and competent in a large number of languages, modern languages that some of us speak, but also of ancient languages, Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Pali. All this in this head. He is author of more than 60 books and the honorary professor at Jain Vishiva Bharati University. And all these different activities earned him the epithet of a human computer, whatever that means. He graduated from the University of Bombay in 1957, then he was initiated as a Jain monk in 1957, And then he must have traveled more than 10,000 miles barefoot through India. Unimaginable for somebody who is always driving around with cars. And of course, as you would imagine, he made very significant contributions to research in Jain canonical literature, and we are very much looking forward to your contribution. Now to your left, His Holiness Jimpa, I don't have to present anymore. Rajesh, you have already seen him several times on stage. He's from Bangalore as well. He's a cognitive scientist and heads the Institute for Cognitive Science at Bangalore University. And Richie needs no further introduction. He is the incorporation of, what did you say, the scientist? I forget the name. The scientist guru, yeah. So, Muniji, the microphone, yes, the floor, and the time is yours. I hope it's on. Yes, you'll make something.
Thank you, sir. I bow my head to the adorable one's Namo Arahantanam. His Holiness Dalai Lama Ji, all the participants and discussions on the stage here, and all the dignitaries, scientists, philosophers, and the spiritual leaders before us. My subject is the scientific study of the effect of Jain contemplative practices, which I will denote as JCP, on human biology and behavior. First of all, let us have the background in two aspects. First is the historical and traditional background. There are some archaeological evidence which show that the Jain contemplative practices date back to Lord Rishabh, the first Tirthankara, while Lord Mahavira was contemporary of Buddha, 599 to 527 BC, is believed to be the propounder of the prevalent Jain contemplative practices. Acharya Mahapragya, who developed this Praksha meditation system after a thorough research in the Agams, the most ancient available canonical literature of the Jains. Acharya Mahapragya, at the age of 90, had just passed away this year on 9th of the May. So we have lost a very great scholar and a sadhak, a spiritual practitioner, just 4 months ago. The other background is the metaphysical base. In Jain metaphysics, every living organism, which we call as jiva, consists of two entities. One is the soul and other is the body. Body is again of three types. One is the subtlemost, which is called as karma body. Other is subtle, which is called tejas body, or we can translate it as an electromagnetic body. And the third is the gross physical body, which is before us. Actually, there is a hierarchy of how the soul and the physical gross body will work. There is a step by step, which we'll see later on, how the message from soul, which is the seat of consciousness, it delivers all its message of knowledge and action to the gross body, and through the gross body we have all the behavior before us. The tejas body, which is a link between the karma, that is subtle body, subtlemost body, and the gross physical body. Karma is a very common word terminology to all philosophies, most of them of India, but they have various, there is difference in the significance. Karma in Jainology, in Jain philosophy, is very special type of material particles or energy which get bound with the soul, and this bondage of karma is the cause of reincarnation. Unless a soul becomes free from all bondage of karma, it cannot attain the free state or emancipation. The Preksa systematic practice of Preksa meditation is proved to bring about the change in the attitudes and behavior, and ultimately it can lead a soul to final liberation or emancipation. Now let us see what is Preksa meditation system as it was developed by Acharya Mahapragya by thorough research in which he had consulted more than 100 books on ancient yoga system of Jaina. And they correlated them with the modern scientific aspects of neuroscience, etc. And this system, which is in practice now, I shall just describe to you. There are 7 steps. The first step comprises precondition, which is sine qua non. It requires a secluded place, of course, and a proper body posture and a proper hand posture. Then steadiness of the body is practiced, because steadiness of mind is not possible without actually attaining complete steadiness of the body. So that is called Kaya Gupti. Kaya Gupti is again a sine qua non for all meditation. And another very major precondition is inner silence. We can attain inner silence only by relaxing the vocal cords. So that practice is required, and when this practice is achieved, one becomes completely having inner silence. These are the preconditions. In the second step, we recite a mantra. Sometimes the mantra is in form of some syllable. Arham is a very special Jain mantra, very ancient Jain mantra, Arham. Also we recite Om. Om is also considered to be a Jain mantra from the point of view that the 5 obeisance paid, the tributes paid to the highest souls. There are Namo Arhantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Airyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabbhasavanam. That is included in Om. So Om is also accepted as a Jain mantra in Jain tradition. And there may be no syllable. We only recite what is called a nasal sound, which we do in Brahmari Pranayam, that is producing the sound like humming bee for a long time, and it will create a protective shield of sound energy which will protect a meditation practitioner from the external effects. The third is the aim and the resolve. Aim, that is the Preksha Sutra. The sutra is given in ancient scriptures. It says, see yourself through yourself. Sampikhaye appaga mappayenam. That is, the soul is to be perceived by the soul. The seer is the soul, the seen is the soul. And then we have the resolve. Every practitioner first make a resolve. I practice meditation for purification of my chitta, that is psyche. Then we move to the fourth step, which is called as Kayotsarga, that is relaxation with self-awareness. In this, we try to attain complete relaxation of each and every part, each and every muscle, each and every nerve of the body through autosuggestion, by concentration of mind on each part, and try to attain complete relaxed condition. After measurement through the equipments like electroencephalograph, it is found a good practitioner of Kayotsarga can produce at once the alpha waves in his brain. And the next step is, the fifth step, is the practice of internal journey, which we call as Antar Yatra. This internal journey starts from the lower end of the spinal cord, which is called as Shakti Kendra, and the chitta is taken to the upper part of the brain, and in this way the prana energy from the center of energy goes upwards to the center of knowledge situated in the brain, and it gives energy, it energizes all these psychic centers which are situated in the spinal cord and the brain. In the sixth step, we practice actual meditation, preksha meditation. The word preksha is very familiar word. Preksha means to see, to perceive. When a person sits as a prekshak, he is called prekshak. When he sees everything, he is called prekshak or drashta. So preksha is a very familiar word, see. But here seeing or perception means inner perception. The seer, that is the soul or the consciousness, try to perceive itself. The various aspects of soul are to be perceived through concentration of our chitta on perception of various phenomena. The first perception is that of breathing, which we call it swasha preksha. Swasha preksha has two alternatives. Either you may perceive your prolonged conscious breathing. You have to breathe with a long duration and you have to perceive consciously your breathing, or the breathing through alternate nostrils. You breathe through one and you inhale through one and exhale through the other, and vice versa. The other object of perception may be perception of body, in which subtle vibrations of prana, that is vital energy, they are to be perceived throughout the body from the toe up to the head by concentrating the mind on each part, and after a certain practice we start getting vibrations, subtle vibrations of the prana in each and every part. The third mode is the perception of psychic centers. These are the Chaitanya Kendras. They are similar, or they can be correlated with the chakras concept in the yoga system. Chakra concept in yoga system and Chaitanya Kendra, which is a very old ancient term in Jain scriptures. It is also called as Karana. Karana and Chaitanya Kendra are ancient terms which we have, and now we call them as psychic centers. As a matter of fact, there are hundreds and hundreds of psychic centers, but we have identified very prominent, eminent centers. Out of them, the 13 centers are given in the photo: center of knowledge, each by its center, and up to the center of energy. And next, we have the perception of the psychic colors, that is Lesha. Lesha is a very ancient concept of psychic color. It is believed that each organism has a kind of Lesha psychic color, and the psychic color has the effect on human emotion and behavior. So we call it Lesha Dhyan. Then we have the last perception, that is perception of thoughts. A person just perceives the thoughts which occurs in the mind, and a situation comes when the train of thoughts completely ceases and it becomes completely thoughtless. Nirvikal he can become. And these are the sixth step, that is preksha meditation. And the seventh step, which is also very important, is the step which we call as anupreksha, contemplation and auto-suggestion. It is anupreksha and bhavana, in which a person has to concentrate fully on one of the psychic center with one of the psychic color, and then repeat the suggestion which he wants to inculcate. It may be relating to the truth. Suppose I want to cultivate the idea, the notion of transitoriness, anitya anupreksha. I want to have this conviction in my mind that everything is transitory, nothing is permanent. So I will have anitya anupreksha, going on repeating the same theme with concentrated mind, relaxed condition, deep breathing, and in this way this is inculcated in my subconscious mind. In the same way, when I want to achieve any positive attitude, say for example compassion or fearlessness, then I have to do the anupreksha of karuna bhavana or abhay anupreksha. In this way, there are so many anuprekshas described in scriptures, as well as new anuprekshas are also discovered by experience, and that is practiced. So in this way, these are the main steps of preksha meditation. Then there are certain auxiliary exercises in which yoga, yogic exercises, breathing exercises, pranayama, recitation of mantra, mudra, etc. They are also practiced to assist the preksha meditation. Now let us see the process of self-transmutation by reversing the vicious circle of karmic bondage. It is believed that the universe is without beginning, without end. The existence of soul and karma, bound karma, it is also in the same way anadi, anand. Anadi, there is no beginning. Now by practice of meditation, we can bring about the end to the bondage of soul and karma, and this is the process how we do it. In this process, first we see how karmic bondage is a vicious circle. The karmic bondage results in karmic fusion. Any karmic bondage which is incurred in any time, in any life, any time in this life or in past life, when it gives its fruition, it becomes fructified, then it gives rise to subtle karmic expressions, the primal drives, which are called as adhyavasaya. They give message of attachment and aversion to the link body, Tejas Sarir. Now, link body is the link between karma body and gross physical body. So, the reason of karmic fusion will either create the attachment or it will create aversion, and this message will be given to the link body, which will, with the help of the psychic color, Lesha, affect the psyche, that is the chitta, that is the state of consciousness, which is subtler than mind. We have distinction in Jain terminology between chitta and mana. Chitta is different from mana. Chitta is a part of consciousness, man is a material equipment utilized for thinking, etc., through brain. Now with the help of the psychic color vibration, that is Lesha, which affect the psyche and which give rise to the urges and impulses, which is called as bhava. This is the next stage, bhava. Bhava is created in the form of urges and impulses, and now the bhava, with the help of prana, that is vital energy, result in the arousal of destructive emotions, which may be in the form of patience, that is called kashaya, or no kashaya, or kozai patience, that is no kashaya. Kashaya are anger, conceit, deceit and greed, and kozai patience are fear, sexuality, etc. The prana that flows in the breath also has a prana, it is called swasoswasha prana, is affected, which is made faster and shallower. Whenever there is arousal of such destructive emotions, automatically the breathing is faster and shallower, and the prana qua breath communicates with the prana qua mind, speech and body through central nervous system, resulting in vitiation of the conduct and behavior, and the whole process culminates in attracting new karma. Then new influx of karma results in new bondage, and the vicious cycle is again repeated. This is the whole vicious circle, how it works. Now we see how through meditation we reverse it. First of all, when we meditate, subsidence cum elimination, that is one state of karma, it occurs, it replaces karmic fruition. Instead of giving the fruit, the karma, it is either subsided, or it is eliminated, or it is partly subsided and partly eliminated. It is called as kshayopashama, either kshaya or upashama, or both kshayopashama. That purifies the adhyavasaya. It gave message now of equanimity instead of attachment or aversion. Then there is benevolent lesya, the psychic color changes. Then there is purification of chitta. Then there is purification of bhava. Then prana inhibits the kashaya and no kashaya, patience and cozy patience, and stimulates positive emotion instead of destructive emotion. In this way, the breathing becomes slower, longer and deeper, and the activities of mind, speech and body, that is motor activities, all become positive, and thus facilitating deeper practice of praksha meditation, and thus the whole vicious circle is reversed, and in this way a person becomes more and more pure, and ultimately it can gain the ultimate goal, that is nirvana or moksha. Now I want to give you certain practical empirical studies made on this system. These are the some stories are there. First of all, we have applied this Praksha meditation system in education. More than 10,000 schools we have selected from all over India with the help of government also and non-government school, in which we have carried on this Praksha meditation, and we have given the name Science of Living. A complete syllabus is made, and we have found that very effective in the field of education. There are ample empirical evidence involving measurement through EEG, EMG, ECG, etc., which show that overall development of the emotional, mental, and physical health of the students has considerably been enhanced through Science of Living, which is application of Praksha meditation in education. I want to suggest here that all these things which we are doing now, we are thinking about the contemplative practices, etc. If we can do one thing, we can bring in education the regular course curriculum of some kind of contemplative practices which can bring about overall cultivation of positive behavior and emotion in students from the very beginning. We can change the map of the world. This is what we should do together. After proper scientific investigation, we can give this to the education system. And if the global education system accepts that this is the way how education can become more fruitful, education does not mean only the provision of livelihood or career. It must give a student how to live a life as a human being in his individual life, in his social life, in his family life, and that can be inculcated through proper curriculum of contemplation in education. Another application is under the supervision of expert physicians. Perfect scientific experiments have been performed which have proved that Praksha meditation system can be used as an alternative therapy. The most successful application is in the reversal of coronary heart disease. Dr. S.C. Manchanda, who is present here, under his supervision, he was formerly the head of the department in All India Medical Institute. Under his supervision, more than 20,000 patients, after thorough investigation, they have been implemented this system, and the coronary heart disease that is reversed. Yes. So in this way, so many applications we can find in the field of drug addiction. Thousands and thousands of people, they have given up drugs, and immunity is increased in cancer, in AIDS, that is found, and subjective change also has been made, and there is the application of this system in sociological fields to juvenile delinquencies in jails, prisoners, and etc., and also to address this problem of Naxalite nowadays. We have chosen some areas in Jharkhand and Bihar and give their training in non-violence to people who have nothing, no money, they are so poor. They are given also self-employment treatment techniques and this kind of techniques, and we are trying to bring about a non-violent socio-economic change there. Now what we expect from the scientists, a systematic research design should be suggested so that multidisciplinary investigation can be undertaken in the field of education, health, psychology, sociology, socioeconomics. I think that this conference, if can give this inspiration to our Indian scientists and other scientists who are here to make a systematic plan to implement these contemplative practices in practical life and just change the whole scenario through this. I think this will be the greatest contribution of our ancient traditions of contemplation and meditation, and through which we can bring about, we can make a new world order which will be full of compassion, love, amity. There will be no more violence, no more possessiveness, no more greed. That dream we have to make materialize and convert it into reality, and with the help of people like His Holiness Dalai Lama and all of you, I think this dream will come true one day on this globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Muriji, for this wonderful synthesis of a scientific analysis of a practice. These flow diagrams really look like a scientific piece. And the ethical implications of these practices, something that science cannot do. From science, we have never inferred any ethical rules so far. They must come from somewhere else. Now, before I hand on the words to Shirley for the next presentation, His Holiness, would you have any comments? Is there anything that Buddhism sees differently?
코 죽도 써야 돼. 다음에 14거에 한 면자도 연구를 봐.
The cycle in which karma kind of, conditions the whole kind of...
No, ultimately, mind or chit creates karma. Karma creates sort of certain sort of the result. So that's the way...
The cycle.
The cycle.
Exactly. Same thing.
So in order to achieve, moksha means cessation of these sources.
No.
So ultimately, we have to take care about our mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So basically, it's the same.
Same thing.
Same. But then, of course, again, it's more
detailed level.
Then, of course, there are differences. Now, I very much impressed your presentation. On the level of individual sort of the body and mind element, and how to purify, that apply to the society,
Yes.
and to build healthy world. So that's very good.
That we have to do, all of us.
Whether other people follow or not, that's a different question. But your presentation is very good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I think it's wonderful to see these convergences happening here. Every time we meet with a different discipline, this is what
May I
happens.
interpret? Just nearly 54 years before, in 1956, our Guru, Acharya Tulsi, met His Holiness Dalai Lama at Rashtrapati Bhavan, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. He introduced Dalai Lama to Acharya Tulsi, our Holiness Guru, and that was the first meeting between Jain tradition and Dalai Lama, and that is now going on since 54 years. Many times he has visited our university, a very remote place in Ladnu, and all the time we have been together in organizing many activities. Thank you.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much. Shirley, you are now going to present us experimental evidence on effects, effectiveness. We're looking forward.
I begin with great reverence to His Holiness and all the other scholars over here. In the next few minutes, I would tell a little bit about the physiology of meditation, a series of studies which we have done over the last 17 years here in India. We have actually studied 5 meditation techniques. 4 of them are from the yoga tradition, like Brahmakumari's Raja Yoga meditation, and the other 3 are similar techniques. And one is Vipassana meditation taught by Goenkaji.
Yes.
Now, what we found was that all 5 techniques, irrespective of what they were, reduced signs of arousal in the body, like the blood pressure reduced, the breath rate was slower, very slow, almost 4 breaths per minute. The heart rate reduced, and various other signs of reduced metabolic needs. The metabolism was lower. But on the other side, when I once presented this in a government forum, they said, if all these things are reduced, can people perform? Will their performance level be good? So then we did a series of studies to see what are the effects of meditation, particularly on attention and memory. And this was because this came as a major objection in introducing meditation in schools. If activation is lower, then children won't study and won't perform well. So we did these studies in the last 3 years, published them, and we've shown that the meditation techniques improve attention and improve memory. But there is a slight paradox here, because normally attention and memory are associated with increased arousal. For example, if you're paying attention to something,
arousal is a technical term. Lawyer,
if you're paying attention or if you're trying to memorize something, then your body will be in a state of alertness. Not necessarily tension, but alertness.
Yes.
So then we said, is there something that we can answer this paradox by going back to traditional yoga texts? So we went back to the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which dates back to approximately 900 BC, and there are 2 meditative states there described. One is the dharana state, and the other is dhyana. In the dharana state, there is meditative focusing. So you could take up the breath, you could take up an external object, but during that time, the mind is engaged in the object of meditation. It progresses on to the dhyana state, where there is no longer effort, there is no longer attention, but it is just a total absorption in the object. And we have done a series of studies on dharana and dhyana states separately. We've looked at the autonomic variables. You can see here a subject like the breath rate, the non-invasive blood pressure, and so on, heart rate variability, evoked potentials. So we give stimuli and we get brain waves, where each wave corresponds to a particular part of the brain. So we are able to say which part of the brain is active in with a particular practice. We've also done some imaging studies, but I'm not going to present that because we've not yet published it. And we also give very simple paper and pencil tasks. Like here is a task for attention. You can see some letters like K, U, H, M, F, T. In a fixed time, very quickly, people have to go through all these letters, cancelling only K, only U, only H, only M, F, and T. If they make any mistake, we record it. Okay? So that's an attention task. And now we come to our results. What was the difference between dharana and dhyana? The first most obvious thing, I'm not going to go into great detail what the variables were. GSR is the skin resistance, the breath rate, the heart rate, the heart rate variability, certain measures. We've put it all in light blue. All of them showed that dhyana, or pure meditation, total absorption in the object, is characterized by total reduced physiological arousal. Whereas only in 2 parameters, that is LF-PAR and HF-PAR, that is the last 2, dharana has some reduced arousal, but not as much as dhyana. And when we looked at the evoked potentials, we found that they act at different levels. Dharana influences the brain stem, so that's lower down, and the dhyana, or pure meditation, influences higher up, like the thalamus and the cortex. Now what happens? Information which is coming from the periphery, it could be a sound, it could be a needle pricking you, is blocked. So this has a lot of applications. We're thinking the possibility of applying this, for example, in pain. Can we use these practices to block stimuli which we do not want to attend to, and attend to those stimuli which we want to attend to? So like a patient with pain, maybe the practice of dhyana can block it at one level, the practice of dharana can block it at another level. Then maybe it can reduce the requirement for painkillers, for example. But this is very far off. This is not yet done. We are planning it. What about attention? Please look only at the middle bar. The light blue tells you before the practice, the red bar tells you after the practice. Now there are 5 sets here. I want you to look only at the middle one where the light.
How long is the period of practice?
20 minutes. But they're trained for 3 months. And you see here in the middle bar that the scores in an attention task actually improved after dharana, even though they had signs of reduced arousal. So this was a good result. There were 55 individuals in this study. So in summary, we can say that these 2 states, once we separated it based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we got a better answer that dhyana seems to be characterized by pure physiological deactivation. Dharana is a slight mix. There is some activation and some deactivation. Attention is better in dharana. And we are continuing this with certain studies which are going on in our institution. And we look forward maybe to carrying it on further with the grace and blessings of His Holiness with mindfulness meditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley, for this very impressive and concise demonstration of what can be done, also psychophysically. You don't always have to get the big measurement devices to find out a change. His Holiness?
디 저제 점이 사실과 디 어느 공부정신 지부지 공배수기 다 주민용아 디에 양골만 하셔야 되고 그러죠 시골.
So the question that His Holiness has for you is between the distinction between dharana and dhyana. Since one is characterized by effortful activity, the other is non-effortless, is it a function of a practitioner kind of gaining greater experience and culminating in effortless state, or is it actually 2 distinct forms of practice?
In the original text of Patanjali, dharana should progress on to dhyana. It is the 6th and 7th stage of the Ashtanga of Patanjali. But we have now found that you can have dharana types of meditation separately, and a person can not only show objectively, but even experience psychologically relaxation with dharana meditation alone and dhyana alone. So it does not necessarily have to be progressing from dharana to dhyana. For example, the Brahmakumari's Raja Yoga meditation, which has its center in Mount Abu, is very much a dharana type of meditation. We find quite a few signs of activation, like heart rate increase. We've published this. But there are many other signs of deactivation, like metabolic requirements. The oxygen consumed goes down. And they are very relaxed. They are, if you ask them both to rate their relaxation, as well as the alpha and the EEG, it's amazingly increased. So you can have dharana center.
말에 구조 다르나랬어. 저제 영화 때서 저번 때서 저는 뭐라서나 내저 돈 나로려야 아니 진줄 지 연구고에 소리 두스.
이네 근데 여치가 맞다. 믹제 믹미로 여치가 맞다. 지리야 그게 미부터서요. 찍디 미부 매버 쳐셔. 딱 그렇지 다라고 지금.
So His Holiness is wondering whether the distinction is more about object, one with object and one
something
object-less meditation.
Yes.
So in one case there is something to focus on. In another case, because it is object-less meditation, there is nothing to focus on. Is that the distinction or no?
Because in dhyana you do use an object in the initial phase, but after some time the object is no longer important through dhyana. The person just uses it as sometimes it can be very transient and get into the state of being totally absorbed without requiring the object anymore.
또미 여치가 맞다.
도매가 비지면은 비지도 가다 짰음부터.
도마 도주 체변이 그렇지.
그래.
내가 그런 것도 들을 내가 없으니까 도주 셔야 돼. 그래. 그래 나.
His Holiness is wondering whether one could look at these two distinctions as one being conceptual, there is at the level of thought, and then the other, the dhyana, being non-conceptual, kind of thoughtless state.
Yes? Yes, very much. That's in fact how we do describe
Pero
it.
shashana, pero midawa kombar chigi, midawa kombar lo chigi, gomeni golia, kasa dana setche.
네.
Di makro community ni dhyana shagri chagmare.
그때는 내주 돈 나올 때 다시 되는 거 봐.
누구 지름이?
누구지르면 다 자고래. So, for example, if we were to take the example of, say, someone meditating on their transient nature, the impermanence. So, at the initial stage, one takes impermanence as the object of meditation, focuses upon it. There will be effortful state, and then, as he or she progresses as a result of this focused attention, would you say at one point, in principle, that dharana state can kind of culminate into a dhyana state?
Yes, yes. In fact, let me just put it in a different way. In the dharana type of meditation, the person remains thinking about the object. Suppose like it's Om. You think about the attributes of Om. What is the significance of Om? What is, how is it written in Sanskrit? You may think of different aspects of Om. And if it's the dharana meditation, you may remain only doing that, and that's all right. But in the dhyana stage, the attributes of Om are just required for a few seconds to take the person into a stage where there are no longer thoughts that Om means this, Om looks like this. It is a thoughtless state where the person and Om, as if mentally, are one.
So, can I ask a question? Yes. So, sorry, but still that doesn't answer the point about does dhyana actually require a precedent of dharana type practice?
There are a few meditations where they get into the dhyana state without dharana.
Yeah, but these individuals might have done dharana type practices before.
Originally,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, Risha.
Definitely. They're most definitely.
Risha.
야, 제가 재밌게 좀 말봐. 제가 조금 소리 말봐.
Isa Marila.
전적이 좀 말봐.
So this is not a question of whether there is a discursiveness or absence of discursiveness. That's not the distinction here. The distinction is whether there is effort and effortless.
Effort and thought.
Thought. Yeah. takanda lo yu jukpa tang zewa nyiwa di jigli yuwa che da jibu tala lo yu lo shungbe sorochi lo yu lo timbe sorochi
디안데 이루 장자간 주거래 원시간 주도.
So, say for example, in both of these cases, like particularly dharana, is it at the object that one takes it, is it at the level of mind or is it actually a visual object that you take?
It can be both. For example, at the start of a dharana on Om, you may actually keep your eyes open
Yes.
and looking at an Om symbol, and then close your eyes and visualizing it.
Right.
But it need not necessarily.
서 이루라래. 간다 공부시월이야. 검제 수국디. 직샤들디. 이루리야. 디 튼지샤르주. 단 남주한테 나베슝 나로려 띵인지 숨년서도.
So this makes sense because we use the visual
서
object.
이루라.
So definitely the object that is being taken on is really an image rather than the physical object. The physical object is only as a kind of a medium, a vehicle, media to get to the mental image. Because in the Buddhist text there is a similar discussion of what is the exact nature of the meditation object. And they're referred to as a kind of a form, a mental form.
It's how you perceive it in your mind or in your mental state.
그래서 나디 근데 달미니 다나다 디아나 용도.
So in that case, can you have these two types of meditation, dharana and dhyana, in relation to taking sound as an object?
Yes. Yes. We have asked them to try it with the mental chanting.
lungro just oma homes the diet of your chow.
네, 옹부시를 좀 두고 이를 걸어. 안 돼, 옹부시를 시키고. 근데
La
옹부시에
Lare,
다투고
lare.
내려야 나나다 내는 셋 보이면.
shake the deacon any young dina one of the charge to
어디가?
So in this case, just to clarify, His Holiness is asking, say, if a person is cultivating dharana type meditation in relation to a sound, so the person will be literally hearing a sound first.
Yes,
Of course.
yes.
But
And,
then it's mainly imagery, right?
Yeah.
It's imagery that matters.
Dina one shagruva.
네, 이미지.
Dina
그래.
one
Right, that's right.
Yeah. And that could be measured, of course. One can measure the brain activity that is associated with imagery, and it differs slightly from the activity that is associated with perceiving concretely objects.
There's me now yours, live chana.
그래.
Should we proceed?
Kuzu da sum ki ti jangje ni dhyana kan le chome
Yes.
to de karo yamurda.
And hear what H.R. Nagendra has to say, because I think it links us up
Yeah.
closely. It's
Further,
a
I will take it
follow-up
further.
in
And
complementary.
then another one question.
Yes.
Now,
Sorry.
대한 강양으로 뭐지리야. 로 가서 우리 공도디 다 지다 용자다 가서 다 지다다 추배 용자시다. 용자는 시시니 추별로 시체. 이네 추별로 때 된들어야 양양섬 코라 그나 지로로래 그 된데 문줄을 샤대야 요르다. 너무 공포도. 자자가 나나다 되는데 로 세민의 용도도.
So, kind of from a phenomenological point of view, say, for example, if someone has an illusion of something, or maybe someone did something or something, and then as you mentally be totally fixated on this, be focused
Of course,
on
that
this,
person, unless some person make correction, he or she believe this is true. So now become more familiar that then should be.
then, so can you kind of envision the possibility that for this person, initially it may be his own thought projection, but then as a result of very long habituation, this could become like an effortless state, like a dhyana. So can one speak of dharana and dhyana in relation to even to these kind of distorted perceptions?
in fact,
That
we
makes you
have,
lot 참아 이미지 맵지.
we have tried to do a little work on this in patients with schizophrenia, where their perception is distorted. So can one bring them from distorted perception, that's a psychiatric disorder, or distorted perception in terms of geometric optical illusions, like the railway lines appear to meet when they go to a distance. So can we see which of these practices reduce this type of disorders of perception? Dharana appears better than dhyana, maybe because there is some attentional substrate still there.
또 여지야 돼. 나나 야서.
Lare dharana yagados.
상고 저 주제.
The consul kada the level ge schizophrenia nyobotulya. The tuna mang boyorwa. Tuna the nyungdo taaya tapshe diphe che the dana yagados ka dina te. So te yorwas.
Just, sorry.
Thank you. So, please, you need the... We may have a logistic problem. Didn't you load it on this?
Yeah, got it here. The veggie?
So maybe we can continue discussing while technique is
His Holiness was saying that
trying to resolve itself.
His Holiness was saying that it's wonderful that this kind of research has already been done to be able to distinguish.
This first time I learned such sort of experiment, you see, actually, or research, actually carrying here. Wonderful.
Here we are.
So similar sort of research
Yes.
in America
Yes.
and here in India. Wonderful.
His Holiness Dalai Lama Ji Muniji, expert scientists, my dear brothers and sisters, I bring greetings from Bangalore. Our university is called Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhana Samsthan. And what Dr. Shirley presented, Dharana and Dhyana, has got close relation to what Pujya Swamiji talked about as two ways to eliminate the ego. The ego can be expanded to infinity, or ego can be diffused to zero through the Bhakti Yoga and the Gnana Yoga. I would like to present briefly the dimensions. The Gnana Yoga is the term used for Vedanta, the Advaita Vedanta that he had presented. It is the path of intellect, the path of analysis. And I give a schematic here to give the whole picture of the Jnana Yoga in a very picturesque way. Already Swamiji has mentioned the steps, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, leading to enlightenment or Jnana. Then when the Jnana gets stabilized, it is called Jivan Mukti, Jivanneva Muktihi. That's also described as Sthita Prajna in the Bhagavad Gita. Then as the person expands further to higher and higher levels, what Pujya His Holiness talked about this morning, higher levels of consciousness, in which you have the higher powers that come up as different siddhis, person living fresh after the death of the body, and several other things. All come under what we call as advanced Gnana Yoga. And ultimate reach is moksha, the eternal freedom. Freedom from all miseries, freedom from all bondages. That is the great teaching that the great Master Swami Vivekananda has given us. And here the essential feature is to cleanse the mind, as beautifully brought out by Muniji also. And what is mind? In yoga, it is not merely functioning of brain. Functioning of brain is manifestation of something happening deeper. Like electricity is there, bulb is there, light is coming out. Light is manifestation. Similarly, functioning of the brain, the EEG signals are all manifestations of the mind deeper. Then how do you define mind? Patanjali says, collection of thoughts, conglomeration of thoughts, chitta vrittis. When the chitta vrittis are there, it is called as the mind. And gaining mastery over the mind is the key essence of Patanjali Yoga. The name given by Swami Vivekananda to that is called Raja Yoga. It is the path of willpower, in which we have the famous 8-limbed yoga called Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is called the Antaranga Yoga. The first 5 limbs are called the Bahiranga Yoga. Bahiranga means external, grass, use the body, use the breathing, use the senses to gain control and mastery over the mind to purify the mind. Whereas in Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, you directly go to the mind and cleanse the mind and gain control and mastery over the mind. This leads to Samadhi. Samadhi is, in a sense, as Swamiji said, is the beginning of really the higher levels of spirituality. After that, you have several types of Samadhi mentioned, which takes you ultimately to Kaivalya or Nirvana or Moksha. Dharana. Dharana is the one that she has talked about. The first step in the mind is the random mind, called Chanchalata. Lot of subjects which are jumping from one thought to another thought. All our effort in our education system is to bring concentration. On one subject, the mind dwells on that. Whereas in Dharana, you have a single thought in which you are going to fix. So here, we are moving from mind to intellect in concentration. And in Dharana, we are moving from intellect to memory. The process of Dharana is focusing up the mind on a single thought. As Dr. Shirley pointed out, you have a physical object like a candle flame. You go on watching that with eyes open. This is called Trataka. And this helps to build the Dharana. Dharana is focusing, in which you are constricting the ego. and making it smaller and smaller. One day, overcome the Maya and then get out of it. So dharana is like focusing of all your energies on a single thought, and it's like a lens burning up the paper or a laser. In our earlier times, the people were taught this dharana like the Arjuna trying to hit the eye of the parrot, the center of the eye of the parrot. That is the example of the dharana. So dharana is the memory way. Tarataka is a way to build it. And here, it is not a physical persistence of the image in the eye, but it is a deeper recollection of the memory comes into picture. So dharana proceeds of recall. It's a memory level, it works. So from dharana, the next step is dhyana. In dharana, there is focusing. In dhyana, the opposite of that. There is defocusing. Expansion. If dharana brings the ego down, the dhyana expands. Effortless dharana can be called as dhyana in a way. What are the features of dhyana then? There is a single thought. Essentially in dhyana, you have a sound. Whereas in dharana, it's essentially the picture, as His Holiness was mentioning in a nice way. There is a single thought, there is a slowness, there is a wakefulness, effortlessness, and a feeling of expansion, a feeling of lightness. You start feeling lighter and lighter, like the flowering of a bud. There is the fragrance that starts coming. So, the whole essence of Antaranga Yoga is to move from dharana to dhyana, and from there you go to the samadhi. Samadhi is a sort of jump from one level of consciousness to the next level. I give the example of samadhi, and the definition is like this, that in all our transactions we have three things: the seer, seen, and the process of seeing. I am talking, the subject of the talk, and the process of talking. There is a trifold process. Even in meditation, there is the meditator, meditated, and the process of meditation. When the three things become one, it's called samadhi. Becoming one with the seen is samadhi. So samadhi can be on anything. That is the one that has been defined by Patanjali, Tadeva Arthamatra Nirbhasa Swarupa Shunyam Iva Samadhihi, as he defines that. And here, I feel there is a comparison to the physical world. In the physical world, there is a quantum jump of electrons. When it goes on absorbing energy at some level, it jumps to a higher orbit. Something like that happens in the mind also. And samadhi jumps from one level of consciousness to the higher level of consciousness when there is a merger that takes place. That takes you to the higher level of consciousness, I believe. And what features samadhi is that there is tremendous amount of happiness, bliss. That is the bliss of the higher level of consciousness. There is a feeling of expansion and lightness. And deep knowledge starts coming up. And there is greater power featured by greater creativity and greater dimensions. And this is the wonderful experience that Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa exhibited in his life when he went into samadhi. And when into samadhi, he was in such a blissful state. And we had a classic example of Girish Ghosh, and he was the drunkard of the times. And he was all the time in a drunken state. Everybody said, except for this drunken state, how wonderful you will be. Why don't you leave? Then Girish said, no, why should I leave? I am getting so much of happiness. Somebody said, why don't you go to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and he will do the things. So Girish was very sincere, very nice person. He came to Ramakrishna, and at that time Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was just coming out. He heard some bhajans, he went into Bhava Samadhi. He was standing like this, in that wonderful Samadhi state. And Girish was looking at him. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then slowly Ramakrishna comes back to the normalcy. Then Girish asks, what brand? What brand? Then Ramakrishna says, God brand. Do you want? Come, I will teach. He completely transferred the drunkard of a Girish into a fantastically great personality. That is the power of samadhi that has been talked about in these things. So through regular abhyasa, practice, the purification takes place, as Muniji also mentioned, and you can reach this higher state. What is the result of this samadhi? Practice of meditation, samadhi, leads to mastery over all the senses and emotions. That's why the values start coming up. You overcome the fear, greed, anger, miserliness, because you are at a higher stage, and the universal love starts coming up. Swami Vivekananda's wonderful speech in Chicago, he talked about the universal brotherhood, Radha's love for Sri Krishna, and His Holiness Dalai Lama's wonderful love for all. Such a fantastic thing. These are all the benefits or the qualities of the higher states of consciousness. Shunichaiva shvapake cha panditaha samadakshinaha, as it is said. And these are the features of the higher states of the consciousness. It leads to peace, silence, transcendence, ultimate reality. Call it Brahman, call it Nirvana, call it Kaivalya, call it Moksha, whatever type. And this goes on through conscious, effortless effort for many, many lives, purifying till end, features a great yogi. This is the whole dimension of this thing, and I'm very, very thankful for you for this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Narendra.
So it's a wonderful presentation. In your presentation, so this is all really focused on samadhi and dharana and dhyana states and so on. There was no reference to sort of any parallel to in Buddhist tradition we have something called vipassana.
No, not only Buddhism, but also non-Buddhism.
Non-Buddhist tradition.
Vipassana.
Vipassana, it's sort of more, it's insight.
Samadhi?
So, samadhi, as a like
super consciousness.
Instrument. And that instrument now used for vipassana.
Yeah.
So, that kind of, sim chichikul mena, and namdog shangwan chidilo, not the university. That namdog to the sani, sim chichikul yon turn. Then they get samadhi, sim chichikul. Dichun at some year, that diggy, miko test the cane, and that handle sali.
So, for example, in our ordinary untrained state of mind, our mind is naturally so restless and distracted that we're not able to channel our focus to do anything effectively. So therefore, cultivation of single-pointedness and stability of the mind becomes very important. And therefore, in the traditions, we see a lot of techniques for developing kind of single-pointedness, even to the point of effortless dhyana or samadhi states. But once one has attained that state, then you have this ability to channel your mind and focus. Then in traditions such as Buddhism, then there is a discussion of how that focused mind should be used to investigate and penetrate into the nature of reality. So which is referred to...
Not only Buddhism, other some days are to change that comes from Sakku Shen, the Gilim.
So he's all... So His Holiness is wondering whether there is, because his understanding was that when it comes to the practice of samadhi and vipassana, insight, it was a common part of the common currency of all classical Indian traditions. So we had a lot of presentation that is very articulate about the description of the samadhi process, getting this single-pointedness mind, focused mind, stable
comes
mind.
from Sakku Sheshidwa.
For example, we find discussions of the levels of mind that are indicative of the three realms, the desire realm, the form realm,
Amatado, Rubatado, Arubatado.
Arubatado, formless realm.
Senita, Kaso, something Tangu Nyato, Mijo Meneche, any Mish something Nietzsche, then something you were super sure, Sumishi Shetted.
So there are descriptions, for example, in the Buddhist meditation manuals or manuals on meditative states, how one moves from the preliminary stages of effortful, concentration, then to the first level of form, and second level of form, and third level of form, and then transcending form into a formless states, and progressively getting subtler and subtle levels of formlessness.
Right.
이 상황으로 신내들 한국인으로 되고.
So in all of these cases, the understanding is that it's not simply a function of the refinement of the samadhi, but there is also a complementary factor of insight. So it's both a combination of the samadhi as well as vipassana, insight.
싹 공공을 시에 있잖아요. 옹만을 잡았대. 랑설을 씌웠대. 양다 다 가서 공만을 씌웠대. 랑설을 잡았대. 싫어하나 보지.
So one of the the techniques of the meditation involve comparing states of mind of the higher levels, higher realms to a lower realm, and making a contrasting of subtlety and coarseness. So in this way, progressively, one gets to a subtler state.
I think the concept of Dhamma Dhatu, Rupa Dhatu, I think common, isn't it?
Karma dhatu.
Karma Dhatu, Rupa Dhatu, Arupa Dhatu.
Yeah.
comes from the motivation 상황을 시행하래.
라렌.
So here also, you move through one samadhi, then again you use dharana, dhyana, samadhi as what's called as sayama to go to the higher next level. Insights will grow. You start fathoming the laws of creation to a greater depth. So like that you go on going. Patanjali describes 8 types of samadhis. There you have sampragnata, asampragnata. Asampragnata is complete silence. Then again the new dimension comes up. So like that goes from one level to the higher level until we reach the Kaivalya. So what Alina says is correct. That insights will grow.
Yeah.
Just a small further to, as Dr. Nagendra said, as the person reaches the state of pure quietude, then insight automatically happens. There is perfect freedom of the mind, and in that quiet state, insight and interoception, what is happening within the body, become automatically perceived.
Under the Nambishung Nalola, when a thing in the Shine, Duyalia, Semne Ku, Sem Joba, Jundu Joba, Land Joba, Dorship, Shoship, and those Rodigua. Did Tanya Duginam?
Solon is wondering whether there
Tanya
is...
practice chain, couldn't do
if you look at the Buddhist instructional texts that describe
the practice of samadhi,
stages of the development of samadhi, there is a description of 9 stages of mental development, moving from an initial stage where you have very effortful, where you have to first try to simply choose an object, focus on it, and then you have to... So the first one is, normally in our untrained state of mind, the mind simply doesn't rest. We just follow the mind. So then you choose an object, you stay on it, and then try to prolong that period of, sustained attention.
That dine yawata mikbekan shaban yutchana yawati nyuache jobot manche dinde kabri yambe kadula lent jobs.
So then the second stage is that, because you are able to now prolong that period of sustained attention for a little while, of course the mind will still wander, but then you bring it back and sustain it. The mind wanders again, you bring it back. So this is the second stage where you reapply the focus.
That in Shivania actually page meeting of Degori. Did you need Chimodo Goba, all chart and
So then from stage 4th onwards, although the stability of focus is maintained, so you don't distract, there is no gross distraction, but there's still kind of influences for subtle forms of laxity or excitation. So it's a progressively decreasing the influence of these 2 obstacles. So in other words, His Holiness was asking that in the Buddhist text, there are descriptions of how to systematically go through, for example, like 9 stages of mental development. So he was wondering whether there is any similar instructions on how one goes through these stages step by step.
Up to reach samadhi.
Exactly. It goes on improving and stay for longer and longer time and with less and less distractions with a single thing. Then when you stay there for a long time, suddenly an explosion takes place, an expansion. Ah, I got it, what Swamiji was describing. That expansion is called as samadhi.
다 되게 들어서 대화로 송.
No.
대화들이야 류신장 대화, 심신장 대화 사실 이 지도 심다.
So, as one of the qualities of the samadhi state, you pointed out bliss. So, in this bliss, in the Buddhist tradition, we speak of Shinjang, Karsa, Sanskrit Shinjang, Prashapti. Prashapti. In Buddhism, there is a term, kind of, pliancy of body and mind. And, one of the marks of attainment of samadhi is you attain a certain suppleness or pliancy of body and mind. And along with it comes bliss.
류신장기.
So first the pliancy of body attains,
되네 심신장.
and then pliancy of the mind.
되네 심신장 대화입니다.
And then there is a bliss arising from the suppleness of the mind,
되네 류신장 대화.
and which then give rise to a bliss at the body level. So
Similar
is,
thing there. Yeah.
is it similar?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. Yeah.
Very good.
So I would like also to give respect to Dr. Gangadhar could not come, and give the word to Richie to comment on this, and then to also summarize maybe very briefly what he would have said had he come, so that we have him sitting here a little bit.
I want to first make a comment about one aspect of this discussion, the idea that Shirley, I think, mentioned introception, which is the perception of one's own body that may come effortlessly with this practice. There is a way to measure this very rigorously and objectively using modern scientific methods, and it's quite a simple and clever procedure, I think. What we can do is to present a series of tones to a person, so they get 10 tones, and in one case, those tones are precisely coincident with the heartbeat. So you get a tone with each heartbeat. And the person's heartbeat is being measured, and the heartbeat actually triggers the tone. So the tones are precisely synchronized with the heartbeat. In another case, they get the 10 tones that are not synchronized to their heartbeat. And the practitioner is simply asked to say, do the first 10 tones correspond to your heartbeat, or do the second 10 tones correspond to your heartbeat? And on each trial, they have to make a decision. Is it the first set of tones or the second set of tones that corresponds to your own heartbeat? So we...
Interoception susu nanglo ke subu nang totanti le ngedra. Tati chota chedebiyores. Kaisana nyingi parceta kanlia ko dat nyingi yogu ko ton datata kanda ton chi. Chikti kola dewa mebu shebina ani middle keji tije. Ani kagiti nyingi parceta tumbo tos labena. Ta ko yabu shin na. Ani yimba ta tukures.
So we gave this test to a group of very advanced practitioners, our long-term practitioners in the Tibetan tradition, and also long-term practitioners in Kundalini Yoga tradition. And one of the things we did is we asked them, after we gave them the task, how confident were you? On each trial, how confident were you in perceiving your own heartbeat? And we had two groups of meditators, the long-term Tibetan practitioners and the Kundalini practitioners, and a group of controls who've never meditated. And both the Tibetan and the Kundalini practitioners rated their confidence as very high, that they were able to perceive their own heartbeat. But when we measured it objectively, no difference from normal controls. Absolutely no difference. So the only difference was that they thought they were better, but they really weren't better
네,
at all.
프랑스 네 개발단 개발가를 그런 분수 땡땡이 쳐봐 채택을 해서 이제 그때 그 가서 땡샘때 숙제도 곰냥이었어.
That actually provides a cue to the neuronal basis of meditative self-confidence, because there has been a recent study in Science that showed that people differ very much in their ability to judge confidently what they have perceived. And they really fall into two groups. There are people who think they are right and they are not right, and there are others who think that they were not very good, but they were very good. And if one looks into the brain in a very bias-free, with a very bias-free method, what is the difference between those people? One finds that there is a small part of the cerebral cortex in the frontal brain that is more expanded and more developed in the people who have the right introspection, who are right in saying whether they are confident or how confident their judgment was or not. I'm surprised that the meditators weren't better. And would you like to
Sure.
recite briefly what
Professor
Gaganta would have said had he been here?
Yes, so Professor Gangadhar's father was ill and unfortunately couldn't be with us today, and he is a psychiatrist who in India who has done some very important, very important research, mostly looking at the effects of certain yoga practices, Sudarsha Kriya Yoga in particular. And most of the studies that he has done have been in clinical populations. So he has looked at patients with depression, he has looked at patients with alcoholism, and also patients with schizophrenia. And he has examined the impact of these breathing practices, pranayama, in these different clinical conditions. And many of these papers have been published, and this is a very extensive body of research. And it indicates that, in general, these practices can be very beneficial in these clinical conditions. And his work shows that it's not just improvements on the patient's own reports of their symptoms, but also on certain biological measures. One of the measures that he uses is cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and he finds that cortisol is significantly reduced by these practices in patients with depression in particular. And one of the really nice things about some of his work as well is that he has included some comparison conditions, not just untreated individuals, but he, for example, in one of his studies compares the yoga practice to physical exercise and finds that the yoga practice actually is, in this case, was more beneficial than simple physical exercise. So, although the physical exercise did have some benefit. Those are the principal findings, and he is now beginning to do work looking at the effects on the brain, although that work is just beginning, but it is work that's now being done in India, and I think this is some very important work and will contribute to the body of work in contemplative neuroscience.
Thank you, Richie. That's very helpful. So it spreads. Good news. So Raj, I wonder whether you want to give a meta-analysis of what you have heard, being a cognitive scientist, and they know usually better?
I'll try. Actually, over the last few days, 2 days, we have heard from both representatives of various Indian traditions, from Muniji, from Swamiji, from Ram Prasad and Tupten, as well as people who have done scientific research on contemplative practices, from Richie and Matthew, from Shirley and Dr. Nagendra. And for a scientist like me who's interested in these traditions, it is a very rich array of knowledge and discovery, perhaps almost confusingly rich. And I'm just trying to make sense of the diversity and see if there is a unity here to be shared, not primarily, I would say, with the Indian scientists here, but also with the other scholars and practitioners, because I do believe that this is a wonderful moment and opportunity to create something new in this country. And the first thought that came to my mind was that contemplative science is an attempt to bring the first and the third person together in an integrated form of inquiry into the human mind and the human brain. Now that is something that neither contemplation nor science by itself can do. So to be able to bring these two together is something which is exciting at every level. As a scientist, it addresses the theoretical questions that I study, but also in terms of the study of human well-being, I think that it offers an opportunity that we perhaps have never had in history before. And so what we heard over the last 2 days from the people who have presented experimental studies is how there are measurable effects that can be detected by studying advanced and sometimes even not so advanced practitioners of contemplative practices. I would like to add one more to this list, which is that the theoretical basis or the philosophical basis of these two traditions also need to be brought together, right? That what was talked about yesterday, that neuroscience comes from a very specific history of European post-Enlightenment thought, and that the Buddhist, Hindu, Jain, yoga, all these traditions, which also have a very long history of working on these very questions, can also be integrated with the theories in the cognitive and brain sciences. So in particular, I feel that what's now emerging in cognitive science as an extremely important subdiscipline, which is called embodied cognition. As Your Holiness, you must know that Francisco Varela was very central to these developments. And embodied cognition and the role of the body-mind complex in the constitution of cognition, I believe, is a very important discipline within the sciences which brings together both the neuroscientific basis and the psychological basis of cognition, but is also, I think, deeply compatible with the Indic traditions in general. Because in the Indic traditions, as you must know, there isn't a strict dualistic metaphysics which distinguishes the mind from the body, or in more modern terms, between the software, which is typically thought of in computational terms as a computer, and the hardware, which is thought of primarily in physical terms, in terms of the brain and the physiology of the body. So I do believe that there is now enough ideas in the cognitive sciences to actually to bring all of this together into one discipline. And that discipline I see as a science of human nature in which well-being is as important as the study of perception or concepts or language, which were the traditional preoccupations of the cognitive sciences and the neurosciences. But that well-being as a constitutive aspect of human nature should be as central to this new contemplative neuroscience, and that not only will that help scientists I do hope that if this goes further, the phase change that you, Wolf, you mentioned in the previous session, that phase change which may be ready to happen could happen if we brought in the best of the theoretical ideas that we have with the rapid advance in neuroscience and the collected wisdom of the So one specific idea that I would want to share as to how to do this might be that the traditional Indian framework of the pramana system, which is shared across all the traditions, might be a way to bring all of these together into one framework. And as you know, that unlike the modern sort of computational approaches to the mind, these are fundamentally cognitive approaches to the mind and knowledge. And that if we think of human nature as based on cognitions rather than on computations, perhaps there's a possibility to have a framework that brings all of this together. Of course, that is more of a theorist dream, but at a practical level, at a practical level, of course, a science of human nature which incorporates well-being, I don't think we need to say any more about what usefulness it would have. I mean, from education to addressing complex issues like climate change, I think that a well-thought-out and well-researched science of well-being, I think, will be important for everybody. But I do think that in order to have that, to echo the British philosopher Bertrand Russell, he once said that people who read Plato do not know mathematics, and people who know mathematics do not know Plato. And I wish to echo that and to reverse it and say that if people who read Nagarjuna know neuroscience, and if people who know neuroscience read Nagarjuna, I think we'll all be better off for it. Thank you.
Raji, thank you. From my observation after those days here, and being at the same time member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, which is exactly the other camp, this is a purely scientific organization, so it has nothing to do with the Curie and the hierarchy. But the problem I see is that the Buddhist view of the world and the emphasis on changing oneself for the betterment of mankind is very much compatible with science. It's much closer. There is not this ontological dualism that we have in the monotheistic religions. There is much more tolerance towards pragmatic ways of finding solutions to the world. Now, the problem I see is, and I see this perhaps less in Europe than in America, which we need to get in the boat, after all, because there's where the power is in the moment still. May not last very long. But how to get what we learn here into a format that, now let me use a commercial term, that can be sold to find acceptance. Because it will certainly not be easy in the domains where the Catholic Church or even the Protestant or Reformed Church is dominant, to sell a worldview that is not ontologically dualistic, that takes away from the individual certain autonomy and responsibility towards the Almighty. So one has to think about a package, how one can redefine and clean from all religious idiosyncrasies. As you said, we need a celestic ethic. But it is not yet clear to me how this can be done easily, and we haven't talked about Islam so far. It's also a monotheistic religion. And most of the problems we're facing in the moment, I think, are with these incompatibilities between these different ways of thinking. And but this is not the place to talk about it, but for the future, we may have to consider those aspects as well. It's a great beginning that this happens here in India, but it's a natural place to happen, much more natural than anywhere else in the world. So maybe this could... What's your experience with us? I mean, with the Western world, His Holiness? When you go there and talk to the leading people?
This is my experience, and also is my effort. You see, religious matter, I mean certain sort of practice which is related with religious faith, it is individual business. What we need is something which can cover entire humanity, entire world. So that's why I'm trying to make clear we need secular ethics. Then if we think, you see, properly, secular ethics not against any religious faith. In fact, all religious faith develop according to the principle of secular ethics. Secular ethics very much related with biological factor. This is my view. So some creator or no creator or next life or no next life, these are personal matter. Whatever you like, you follow it, no problem. But at the same time, you see, these, I think the Buddhist concept, you see, cannot cover all human beings, all humanity. And because a monotheistic religious belief also is cannot cover all humanity. I think we Buddhists and we Jain, you see, we believe law of causality rather than creator, isn't it?
Yes.
No
creator.
No creator. So strictly speaking, we too non-believer. So in any way, these are, I feel, is the personal matter, and each have sort of special things to impact in individual human mind. Some individual, the concept of creator is so beautiful, so powerful, very good. Other day also I mentioned, is the total submission to God through sheer faith reduce self-centered attitude, isn't it? We Buddhists, you see, in order to reduce self-centered attitude, egoism, through concept of anatma theory. Now here we also have some barrier. You believe atma, I do not believe atma. Even within Buddhist, you see, there are some barriers. Pali tradition, Sanskrit tradition. Within Sanskrit tradition, they follow of Chitta mantra and follow of Madhyamika. There's demarcations. It's endless. I think some Buddhist literature mentioned, so long human brain remain there, difference is always there. Right? Namdo masabodo,
There is a expression, there's a line in one of the Buddhist texts that so long as human thoughts remain, proliferation of philosophical ideas will never come to an end.
So that's true, that's fact. So we need, you see, some kind of ethics which can cover entire humanity. Now, like science, universal principle, universal sort of practice. So is it something, some sort of moral principle, moral ethics, which based on biological factor, and that cover everybody. And now important is, usually see people never sort of look seriously about our inner values, only money value, isn't it? Now India also now getting more and more interest about money, isn't it? More greed, and including some minister, you see now a lot of corruptions. These are the indication, you see, forgetting about our inner value and the principle matter. So this is, so I think everywhere, you see, that's the situation. So we must, now law, very good law, for example, India, rule of law, and the free media, right? So that bring these sort of corruption in some extent. But still, ultimately, without self-discipline, clean society, very difficult.
Not possible.
Oh, yes, not possible. It's self-discipline is the key factor to healthy society, healthy family, isn't it? So self-discipline, you see, come only through certain conviction. Conviction from faith, shaky. Conviction through investigation, through research, find fact. Then everybody is selfish. So you see, for self-interest, you see, you need certain sort of principle. When people realize that, like you see, carrying one's own body, everybody, no need law, everybody is taking care. Similarly, taking care of our sort of mind, inner mind.
Mental health. No?
Mental health. So that's the main, my main sort of emphasis on that level. So I never discuss about certain Buddhist unique sort of thinking with scientists. No, this is Buddhist business. So now another word. So just last yesterday and today, I really felt now we are reach something like spiritual supermarket. Wonderful, wonderful. Your presentation, oh, wonderful. Oh, your presentation, wonderful. So that one danger create more confusion. So we need more detailed sort of study. And I think importance to make clear what's differences. That also I think necessary. Isn't it? Otherwise, you see, there is real danger. You see there. Now, what's the differences between Buddhism and Jainism and Hinduism? No differences. Everybody is talking about the clear light or samadhi or all these things. So that I think if these traditions are truly same, then the 1,000 years of these great masters, I think they kasure.
So it would imply that they were all wrong.
So anyway, I really sort of appreciate our meeting. I think my scientist friend also, I think now you felt such meeting took place in India and more participate from ancient the Indian different sort of spiritual sort of that
Traditions.
Traditions. Really enriching, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, it's worthwhile. So I'm really happy. Very good, wonderful.
I think there is a psychological phenomenon which is called the recency effect. Even though we have a few more minutes to go, I think we should really stop here because there is nothing to be added. And in order for this to sink and to have an effect, a little bit of calm would perhaps be good. And I would like to just finish this session here in the moment, and then we have a 15-minute break. And then we reconvene for the open discussion.
That's all.
So,
Right.
His Holiness, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And he tries to translate the vision of Swami Vivekananda technique to combine the best of the pragmatics in the East and the pragmatics in the West, if I understand correctly. Now to his left is Shirley Talley. She got her degrees, the master degree in biological sciences from Goa Medical College, then her master in philosophy and neurophysiology and a PhD in neurophysiology from the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore. Now she is a director of research at Panyala Yogapith Haridava. I probably make mistakes here. I apologize. And he is the head of the Indian Council of Medical Research, Center for Advanced Research in Yoga and Neurophysiology at Bangalore. And she also has a respectable number of scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals on yoga and the effects of yoga on physiological parameters, which led to a number of rewards from the Indian Council of Medical Research, from the John Templeton Foundation, and also from the Fulbright Foundation for traveling. Then to my left, I have Muniji Mahendra Kumar. He must be known to you, all of you, from literature and from reading. He is a scholar of very many diverse disciplines, and what I read here makes me admire. It's physics, mathematics, bioscience, and philosophy. He's also an expert in ancient history and meditation, and competent in a large number of languages, modern languages that some of us speak, but also of ancient languages, Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Pali. All this in this head. He is author of more than 60 books and an honorary professor at Jain Vishiva Bharati University. And all these different activities earned him the epithet of a human computer, whatever that means. He graduated from the University of Bombay in 1957, then he was initiated as a Jain monk in 1957, and then he must have traveled more than 10,000 miles barefoot through India. Unimaginable for somebody who is always driving around with cars. And of course, as you would imagine, he made very significant contributions to research in Jain canonical literature, and we are very much looking forward to your contribution. Now to your left, His Holiness Chimpa, I don't have to present anymore. Rajesh, you have already seen him several times on stage. He's from Bangalore as well. He's a cognitive scientist and heads the Institute for Cognitive Science at Bangalore University. And Richie needs no further introduction. He is the incorporation of, what did you say, the scientist? I forget the name.
Guru.
The scientist guru, yeah. So, Muniji, the microphone, the floor, and the time is yours. I hope it's on. Yes, it makes something.
Thank you, sir. I bow my head to the adorable ones, Namo Arahantanam. His Holiness Dalai Lama Ji, all the participants and discussants on the stage here, and all the dignitaries, scientists, philosophers, and the spiritual leaders before us. My subject is the scientific study of the effect of Jain contemplative practices, which I will denote as JCP, on human biology and behavior.
After this very lively morning, the dialogue between experts between the Buddhist and the Vedanta traditions, we are now having an afternoon with yet another discipline of contemplation, Jain meditation, and in particular the practical aspect of it, the praksha. So there will be practical instructions, examples of applications, also medical applications, and in particular we will have scientific studies performed in India on praksha meditation and its effects. So this is a nice example on the secular practice that you proposed 2 days ago. You will see 3 new faces on stage. Some of them you know already, the others you know. And for the attendants, I would like to briefly introduce them to you. All the way to the right, we have H.R. Nagendra. I was told that one can use the abbreviations and that it is actually requested. He's the President and Vice Chancellor of the Swami Vivekananda Yoga University in Bangalore. Correct. He has co-authored about 35 books on yoga and nearly 35 or 40 research papers in engineering and in yoga. He got awards from the Ministry of Health for his initiatives in promoting scientific analysis of yoga research. And he is a consultant in yoga to many universities all over the world, in Australia, in the US, and other countries. He joined the Vivekananda Kendra, which is a service mission, as a honorary director of training in 1975. Then he spent a whole decade in developing yoga and yoga therapy programs. And then he shifted to the headquarters to Bangalore, where he still is.
First of all, let us have the background in 2 aspects. First is the historical and traditional background. There are some archaeological evidence which show that the Jain contemplative practices date back to Lord Rishabh, the first Tirthankara, while Lord Mahavira was contemporary of Buddha, 599 to 527 BC, is believed to be the propounder of the prevalent Jain contemplative practices. Acharya Mahapragya, who developed this praksha meditation system after a thorough research in the Agams, the most ancient available canonical literature of the Jains. Acharya Mahapragya, at the age of 90, had just passed away this year on 9th of the May. So we have lost a very great scholar and a sadhak, a spiritual practitioner, just 4 months ago. The other background is the metaphysical base. In Jain metaphysics, every living organism, which we call as jiva, consists of 2 entities. One is the soul and other is the body. Body is again of 3 types. One is the subtlemost, which is called as karma body. Other is subtle, which is called tejas body, or we can translate it as an electromagnetic body. And the third is the gross physical body, which is before us. Actually, there is a hierarchy of how the soul and the physical gross body will work. There is a steps by step, which we'll see later on, how the message from soul, which is the seat of consciousness, it delivers all its message of knowledge and action to the gross body, and through the gross body we have all the behavior before us. The Tejas body, which is a link between the karma, that is subtle body, subtlemost body, and the gross physical body. Karma is a very common word, terminology to all philosophies, most of them of India, but they have various, there is difference in the significance. Karma in Jainology, in Jain philosophy, is very special type of material particles or energy which get bound with the soul, and this bondage of karma is the cause of reincarnation. Unless a soul becomes free from all bondage of karma, it cannot attain the free state or emancipation. The Preksha systematic practice of Preksha meditation is proved to bring about the change in the attitudes and behavior, and ultimately it can lead a soul to final liberation or emancipation. Now let us see what is Preksha meditation system as it was developed by Acharya Mahapragya by thorough research, in which he had consulted more than 100 books on ancient yoga system of Jaina. And they correlated them with the modern scientific aspects of neuroscience, etc. And this system, which is in practice now, I shall just describe to you. There are 7 steps. The first step comprises precondition, which is sine qua non. It requires a secluded place, of course, and a proper body posture and a proper hand posture. Then steadiness of the body is practiced, because steadiness of mind is not possible without actually attaining complete steadiness of the body. So that is called Kaya Gupti.